So bear with me a minute.
All
right. It's rolling.
So bear with me a minute. All right. It's rolling and going. Bear with me a minute.
We are live.
So, live in the mob. It's rolling and going. Bear with me a minute. And we are live on YouTube. Live in the mob. It's rolling and going. And bear with me a second. I'm going to put this down. Live in the mob. Be right back. Bear with me a second. I'm going to put this down. All right. Well, tonight's topic, I have a topic of the pinion angles, drive shaft, drive shaft end plate in and out. For those that are watching on YouTube and on Facebook, everybody on YouTube, I can see your comments, and if you do leave comments, I will be sure to look at them and respond to them. It may take me a few seconds to get to those because YouTube is delayed a little bit. Everybody on the mob, I'll be able to see you guys comment and respond. Waiting for my co-host, Mr. Craig Weiss, to join in. Once he joins in, then we're going to get rolling. Like I said, tonight's topic is pinion angles, and we'll kind of go from there, see what happens. So what's everybody thinking about talking about tonight? Anything interesting happen for you guys over the weekend, or anything special? Yeah, David Bacon, I do have a nice hat on there. Yeah, he's feeding his wife. The meat. Okay, Terry. So, yeah. So, let's see. I see Joey's out in the chat. I see Terry's there. David, Michael. Oh, and it's Monday. Been one interesting weekend for me. See, 4 degrees back. When you say 4 degrees back, what are you talking about there, Michael? Are you talking that you have the transmission down 4 and the pinion, up, or do you have the transmission up and the pinion down? Just waiting for Michael Hummel to respond back here. Let me know what he was meaning. Okay, so you got the transmission down 4. Where's your rear end? Is your rear end down or up, or? Excuse me. Just waiting on Mr. Craig Weiss to get on. Actually, Michael, your transmission, if you have your transmission down 4 in the back, that's probably not what you want to do, because Typically, you want the transmission up and the rear end down, for the simple fact of when the torque works, they're going to pull together. But you want them, more or less, you want them in a even plane, even though that, say this one's, your transmission is 2 up and your rear end, you want your rear end like 2 down. So that would give you like a 4-degree pinion angle. So, oh, I see we got John Powell in here. But yeah, typically, and I'll kind of get into that into the discussion tonight. You want your angles to be in parallel. So in theory, they're running on the same plane, or same plane. Not necessarily, directly in line, but they're running on the same planes. Boy, Mr. Craig Weiss is just hiding tonight. He hasn't come out. So I guess what I'm gonna kind of do is start jumping into where I'm kind of going with this tonight and what we wanted to talk about. So let's see, 12 1/4 and rear end yoke is 11 3/8. You know what? While we're waiting for Craig to show up, I'm going to bring Michael. I'm going to bring you on camera here, and we're going to kind of discuss a little bit about yours. We'll wait for Craig to come on. That way we don't have to have a big delay in discussion here. Yes, pinion angle today, John. Let's see, we're waiting for Michael. Okay. How are you tonight?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. How are you tonight?
Doing all right. Just sitting here looking at it.
Yeah. All right. So now, when you said your tranny yoke center line is 12 1/4, are you talking 12
Measuring
1/4?
off the floor.
Okay, measuring off the floor. Okay.
Correct.
So what you want to do is you want to have a pinion, an angle finder. And what you want to be able to do is put the angle finder on the back of the transmission. So as it's tilted one way or the other, that will tell you the angle of the transmission yoke. And then same for back on the rear end, you're going to want to put a angle finder right on the pinion yoke and where that shows. So that will give you on your transmission, that will give you, how many degrees. And usually you want the transmission 1 or 2 degrees up, depending on where you're setting your pinion angle, maybe 3 up. And then your rear end, you're going to want it the 2 to 3, depending on how you're setting the car up, whether you're setting it up for race or street or whatnot.
It's just street driving, play around a little bit. Nothing
Just
bad.
a street drive.
Yeah. The LQ9, I got an angle finder setting on the lift plate, so the engine and tranny itself is setting at about a 4-degree angle.
Okay, so now that's the engine transmission. The biggest thing you want to look at is your to properly get your pinion angle, you're going to want to put the angle finder like on if you've got a yoke in the transmission, you're going to want to put it right on that yoke. And that's going to give you your angle, tell you where your angle is at the back. I mean, everything should be running on the same plane. If you set your angle finder up on the engine, that should give you your angle of that there. But you still want to go off of the pinion, or not the pinion, off of the yoke outside of the transmission. And then same thing on the rear end. You want to put it on the pinion, either where the pinion's sticking out or on your pinion nut. So that way it tells you your angle. And I'll get more into that later this evening.
Okay, well, I can grab them numbers when you bring Craig on, and I'll put them in the comments.
Okay, yeah, and then we can kind of use yours as a reference and kind of give you an idea of where we'd like to see yours possibly go to. So I see Craig is on here, so I'm going to go ahead and bring Craig on and go ahead and grab us those angles, and we'll go from there.
I'll do that. You want me to X out? I don't know how to get in and out of this.
I'll X out. I'll X you out.
I'll get them numbers.
All right. Okay, so we have Mr. Craig Weiss here. And Mr. Craig, see how Mr. Craig Weiss is doing tonight. I'll wait for him to come.
What's up, buddy?
Not much. How about you, buddy?
Oh, I just finished some beautiful barbecue chicken.
Yeah, I saw some pictures of chicken on your own personal Facebook there. It looked pretty yummy.
I did 2 packages of chicken thighs, skin on, bone in, and I brined it for about 4 hours. And then I smoked it up to about 165 with applewood smoke in the pellet smoker, and I did not put any barbecue sauce on them. I left them dry, and they were absolutely fantastic.
Oh, that sounds good.
That's what you do in the wintertime when you don't get to work. You just sit and play. Now that it's 60 degrees warmer today than it was last week.
Oh boy, that sounds good.
Absolutely. Very good.
Well, our topic tonight is pinion angles. So we're kind of also drive shaft, the yoke, the slip yoke. How much do you want, sticking out of the transmission, and how much you want in, and so.
Absolutely.
So if you notice tonight, I'm wearing my mob hat there. I got a mob name tag here.
I've got a one-of-a-kind mob shirt that was made for me a while ago, and it's never sold, but it looked good.
Oh, hey, that one looks pretty good.
That was good. Not a lot of people wanted that kind of. You get a lot of strange looks at the family car events walking around with that, but.
Well, I guess a family event. You gotta, think about that kind of stuff. What people might look at, what they might think.
Absolutely. So, I'll tell you what. When you were talking about pinion angle, and for a lot of guys on the page that know that I had my car, and then I bought my frame and chassis, which was completed from a guy who gave up on his project, and that was the biggest question to me was, who set it up? Did they set up the rear end right and the pinion angles right? And we had no idea, and I get the car home, and that was one of the things that I had to research, because like you said, it's basically about running parallel with the motor and the rear differential. You want them running parallel to create that angle. And I'm luckily I want to say I was right at like a little over 3 degrees on both of them. Jim helped me measure out both and figure out all that. So that was a worry, because you don't want to be going down the road at 70 miles an hour with a bad vibration. Things won't last.
Yeah, you don't want that.
No.
Oh, yeah. Pinion angles are quite an integral part. Something that you really want to have set. In a good point where it needs to be. For multiple reasons. For longevity of parts. For if you're a racer, keeping the parts, to where you're getting optimal performance. And I'm going off of using some stuff from different performance places. And I'm going to give bits and pieces that I've, kind of read and studied up on, as far as setting pinion angle and setting different, doing different stuff and how it will affect the car differently. So typically on like a leaf spring car, you want 5 to 7 degrees of negative angle. What that's meaning is that you will have let's say your transmission is up 3 and your rear end is down 3. That typically gives you 6 degrees negative because your drive shaft is at a negative angle going down towards the back. And that, with that being said, the reason you want so much on those cars, and the other thing that you got to remember is that you want, as the rear end moves, you don't necessarily want, when the rear end moves, your pinion angle out at the back to rock. You want the pinion angle to stay in a parallel, basically parallel with what you have at the transmission. So a leaf spring will actually wrap the spring up. So that's why they're showing, instead of saying an even number, and we'll get into 4-link and ladder bar a little bit later, where you will get spring wrap and that rear end will move some. So you set, with a odd number instead of an even number, you will set the transmission. Let's say you set the transmission 2 up and the rear end 4 down. That would give you 6 as well. But we're just kind of going for reference here. So much angle. I shouldn't say odd number. I should say such a drastic amount of pinion angle. So let's say you set the transmission 2 up and the rear end 3 down. That's going to give you 5. And that is for the fact that when you jump on it and the spring wrap, that rear end torques and twists in there. And as it's torquing and twisting, you're losing pinion angle. So you're, instead of being in where, you typically have everything's moving parallel, it's twisting. So you want to pre-install some room for that rear end to twist and turn. So that way it can twist and work. Now I see Michael Hummel says that his transmission yoke is 4 degrees. I would assume that means he's 4 degrees down, and I assume that means his rear end is 1 degree down. So with those being your 4 degrees transmission, I would assume is 4 degrees up, and I would assume his rear end is 1 degree down. Comment, Michael, if that's not the case. What happens there is when you get that, when it twists, so now you've got your transmission at 4 degrees here, and you've got your rear end at 1 degree here. Well, right now they're not running parallel. You want them to run as close to parallel as possible. So in that case, for him to, Terry, yes, it will wrap under load. During normal driving, it's not going to wrap as much. Just normal street driving, it's not going to wrap as much as if you're getting on it. But Michael, with yours being, I would assume 4 up and 1 down, being the rear end, being the transmission, I'm going to assume that's how yours is set up. What I'm saying is that you're never going to have them in a parallel, because your transmission is going to be up 4 degrees and your rear end is going to be at 1 degree. So there's no real chance for them to get into parallel. So you may experience difficulty with U-joints and whatnot, causing excessive wear. So what you want to try and do, if you're going to stick with that 4 degrees on the transmission, I would bring the rear end down to 4 degrees. Now, granted, that's going to be 8 degrees total. So in all honesty, if you can bring your transmission down to, let's say, 2 or 3 degrees and drop your rear end, because your rear end, you can play with the rear end in a leaf spring car with shims. You can change your pinion angle there. They make different wedge-shaped shims that will move the rear end up or down, move the pinion up or down. So what you want to do is get a little bit more pinion angle, because it's, like I said before, it's wear and tear, and it will, make things run easier. You may end up with a vibration at such an angle, when you have that larger angle. And I'm not looking away from the camera, guys, to ignore you. I'm kind of looking back, referencing the stuff that I've researched throughout the week, just to make sure that I'm giving correct information and not.
So you're implying that I'm ignoring them then? That's what you're doing.
No, I'm assuming since I sent you the links, you're probably kind of skimming over the stuff that I sent you just so you can.
I got a split screen on my computer. I'm looking at that and my trivia question for tonight.
Oh boy, trivia. Yeah, trivia question. So, and the other thing you got to remember is you never want transmission is angled down 4 degrees. Okay. So with that being down 4 degrees and rear end yoke is 1 down. So with that being said, right now, what you've got going on there, Michael, is your transmission is down like this. Your rear end is only down like this. That's putting a lot of undue stress on the yokes, or it will. You'll probably end up with driveline vibration. And I don't say that to be mean. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. The thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get that transmission up, get that out of the negative there. And then the next thing you want to do, like I says, if you can get the transmission up to like 2 or 3, and then get your rear end at like 3, 3 down, that would probably be ideal for you. Because of the simple fact that, like I said, the spring wrap, the torque, the twist, it's gonna lift that the nose of the pinion up, because as you're applying torque, that rear end. So think about it. Your wheels are spinning clockwise. Well, it's wanting to pitch the front of the rear end, the pinion, counterclockwise. It's just a natural, how things naturally work and how they go. So with that being said, I would look at it, see if there's a way you can either drop the front of your engine or raise the back of your transmission to gain a little bit of, gain some angle and get that, the back of the transmission up. Myself personally, I run in my car, I run the transmission, I run the transmission 3 up, and the rear end, actually my transmission's about 2 up. And because mine is a ladder bar, I try to run about 2 degrees in my rear end. Just because they're going to be running in a parallel, transmission's over here. That's where it's been all night. Sorry. So that way they follow a parallel, the whole time. Actually, this one doesn't move any, but, so they stay in a parallel angle at all times, going down the road and whatnot. You can raise the rear of the tranny. Yeah, that's probably what I would recommend doing. Myself personally, the way I built my transmission cross member, I put shims out on the outside and raise the back of the transmission up to get my, the degrees that I want in the rear. And then the rear end, like I said, my car's a ladder bar car, so I made adjustments on the Heim joints to adjust the rear end how and where I wanted it. When I originally built the car, I built, the rear end at 0, but knowing that the ladder bars, I can make adjustments on the Heim joints to pitch the rear end up and down, whichever way I needed to go.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know you could do that with a 4-link.
With 4-link and a ladder bar. Now, let's see here. I gotta read up here a little bit real quick because I skimmed this earlier. You can't tell if it smells like it or not. And also the pinion angle can have, can have an effect on your traction in the vehicle. On how it plants a tire, how well or how hard it plants a tire and puts a car, makes a car stay with traction to the road. Um, it just depends on, what you try and do. And there's one thing, a quote from Jerry Bickle here. It says, there should be no pinion angle on acceleration, or vibrations, that would cause power loss, and a universal joint breakage can result. So with that being said, on acceleration, you want it to be to where they're, if it's going to wrap or whatnot, you want it to be as close to the zero as possible. Granted, when you're going down the road, this one is going to try and follow and stay in the same 2-degree arc, but as you torque on it, it's going to try and get to where they're in line. So, you got to place them so they work together. And there are plenty of good sources out there. There's an automotive blog that, when I have questions, I will go through and look through automotive blogs, and I try to stick with ones that come from reputable places. There's an article in the Summit, in their section that's on all cylinders. I read that kind of stuff. There's quite a bit of information in there. And likewise with a 4-link, some of the guys with the newer 4-link stuff, you want to get adjustable bars that will allow you to change a pinion angle. So the upper bar might tighten in a little bit and bring the pinion angle down, or, turn it out and it'll adjust the pinion angle up. There's so many different little things that you can play with, and where most of you guys are at is you're not with a 4-link, you're not with a ladder bar, you're probably going to be on the leaf spring. So, that's why I'm not really touching on the ladder bar and 4-link very much, unless somebody says, hey, I want to hear about ladder bars and 4-links. So, but correct, John. Craig should have no trouble laying rubber.
The only trouble I have is burning off $600 tires more than I should, so we'll let those be for now.
$600 tires. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Michael, if you can't move the engine up or down any, then I would suggest shimming the cross member. And Matt Murray, you got a 4-link there. All right.
He needs that because he's going to be dragging that thing. It's going to be sitting right on the ground.
Okay. Well, and, there's so much more to go into on, what can be done with 4-links. Because the simple fact that there's an infinite amount of adjustments, because a 4-link, if you're going with a true 4-link rather than just a factory 4-link, a true 4-link has, I think there's like 4 holes on the front and 4 holes on the back. So you can set the rear bar up high and then down low. And what you're doing, the 4-link, there's so many different things than just what the, pinion angle. There's things where, that's called instant center. There's a pickup point. And so you draw an imaginary line, from the bottom bar, which usually sits parallel with the ground, and then you got your top bar that runs at an angle. Well, that, dragging ass, okay. So your top bar, if you move that up and down in the front or up and down in the rear, that changes what's called your instant center and your pickup point to an imaginary point on the car farther out and farther ahead. Where, since I have a ladder bar car, mine is pretty much set. My pickup point and my instant center are, they're predetermined. Where, like I said, a 4-link, you can adjust that upper bar up and down. So as you move that bar up and down, that changes your instant center farther out to the front of the car and changes your pickup point farther out to the front of the car. So it changes.
Let me jump in here. What I'm going to do now, we're going to have a couple of giveaways. So I see we got about 12 or 13 people on right now. So the first one to come up with the answer and put it in the scrolling comments here is going to win. I'm going to give basically away Tri-5 Mob air freshener. It's black ice in flavor. That's what this one is today. You need that. So I see we got 12, 13 people on. John Liddig, he needs some air freshener. I ain't going to lie about that. I see Jesus. Alan, yes, that's where Daniel and I are a lot alike. If you look over his shoulder, he's got Jesus watching over us. It's a good day. I kind of have an angel on my shoulder, if you want to give it that type of look. Her name is Sabian, even though that's the 2020 calendar because I haven't got her new one yet. My wife says I can't do that. So anyways, so let's get back. Here's a trivia question. First one on. You guys are going to have to Google this. If you don't know it, try not to leave the page. First one to come back with this answer correctly is going to win a Tri-5 Mob air freshener. And so in 1957, Chevy small block, which was a 283. Oh, God, I lost my spot now here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's right here. I just had it. Come on. I just don't want to say it. Okay. It was so dominant, the 1957 small block was so dominant in NASCAR that it was banned. What was banned? Not the small block. The small block wasn't banned, but what feature on the small block was banned in NASCAR because it was so dominant in 1957? Did I say that correct? I think so. They should get it.
Right.
First one to answer, figure it out. Why in 1957 was the Chevy small block? Well, 1957 Chevy was dominant in NASCAR, and there was a feature that was banned because it was so dominant in NASCAR. So we'll look for that. Boom, Steve Frank wins. There it is.
Oh, Steve Frank.
Rich almost came up with it, but Steve Frank got a fuel injection.
Almost.
Then John Lake, look, everybody's coming through. I like to see that dual quads.
Dual quads, I mean, that would have been cool in NASCAR, but...
All right, so I'm going to write that down. Steve Frank, how do you spell that?
Steve, well, Steve, and Frank, Frank.
All right, sweet. So Steve Frank wins the first one, so can't complain there.
No.
Giving that away. All right, more about pinion angles, Dan, go ahead.
Okay. Now, the other thing to kind of keep in mind, and when they're talking, negative or positive, they're talking the angle of the drive shaft. So a negative pinion angle is what you usually want, which is the angle of the drive shaft. So a negative would be like a -3 or -4. So when you're adding your numbers together, you're going to get, so your transmission is 3 up, your pinion is 2, 3 down, whatever. When you add those together, that gives you your drive shaft angle. You're wanting to keep, between 2 to 3, sometimes 4, depending on the, and it depends on the car. Your pinion angle is, like I said, the actual drive shaft angle, and because it's going downhill to the back, that's where it gets the negative number. You add those.
So Dan, I'll ask a question. Obviously, you probably know this, and I'm sure most of the guys do, but as you're talking about the pinion angles, and I understand keeping them parallel, the pinion to the rear differential, all that, when your car's sitting on the ground, if the frame isn't perfect, say you got some good rake to your car, right? Mm-hmm. Are you basically you've got to zero it on that frame first, because that's your 0 point, not the ground,
right.
Not parallel to rising,
right. You're zeroing it on the chassis of the car.
Okay. Because I know when Jim and I checked mine, we used Home Depot's got their Husky digital, digital level, and it has degrees on it. So we zeroed it on the frame, and then I checked the rear end, and then I checked the pinion up by, or the transmission. And I want to say that I was like right around 3.5 degrees on both of them. So I'm running really parallel, like, for what I'm supposed to. And that was, once we figured that out, it took me about a full day to get under the car, figure that out back then. But that was a big thing because obviously you don't want to go forward and get driving down the highway and have a vibration. And I had no idea who set up the rear end.
Well, and that's the other thing. Your more ideal is to have the pinion down and the transmission up, because as the rear end's coming up in the car and as it's twisting and torquing, that's going to get them, work more on the keeping a parallel. You don't want them both at an angle like this, and you don't want the transmission down, because as the rear end is, torquing, the rear end's trying to torque up. So you want them in a relatively same plane. So that way, and the other thing is, if a lot of us, most of us are probably running a rubber rear mount, the transmission will try to, as everything's going, the transmission is going to try and suck down. So that's why I kind of been using my hand saying that the transmission, showing that the transmission might, might move some as well.
You make me want to laugh every time because I think of two Mondays ago and there was a little other noise that came out and I keep fucking don't laugh. I
know. What can I say? My wife's a good cook on the weekdays. I'm a good cook on the weekends. Well, we both cook during the week, but I had good food, and it's saying, hey, I tasted good. I want you to taste me again.
There you go.
So anyways, as things torque and pull together, the transmission, it pulls down on the transmission some, and it pulls the rear end up some. So in theory, as things go, they're going to straighten out and line up. So ideally, like it says, you want the rear end up a little bit, and the transmission up a little bit, and the rear end down to an extent.
Gotcha. I'm just typing a little message here.
Uh-oh.
No, just reminding people that you're live. That's kind of the nice thing about having the computer and everything going on here.
Yeah. This is true.
I see 15 on the one.
Yeah, I know. I seen 15, or I saw upwards of 16.
There you go.
So
I've got on my phone it says 12. The computer it says 14. So I don't know where I'm losing people.
Yeah, well, my computer says 14. My phone says 14. And
maybe my computer is more accurate, but it's counting Alan Bahari as a 2 because he's Canadian.
Oh,
just a thought.
A,
right? A. So A. And he has no snow. He took his wife's pickup. I think it's his wife. Alan, chime in on this. But Alan's been building, I believe. Oh God, I can't remember the year. 55, 56 pickup. And for his wife, and he got to take it out under its own power for the first time in decades today, and there was no snow. It looked like a nice, beautiful fall day. 56 and it was like beautiful fall day. The guy does all that beautiful work and doesn't show it on the mob, but that's okay. We'll let him go on that. It looks nice.
Yeah. Well, it's a Tri-5 in theory, but Tri-5 truck. So
it does good work though. So that is yours.
We're Tri-5 cars.
There you go.
That's understandable.
Technically, my car is my wife's car because I'll be gone before her, so it's going to become hers anyways.
What?
The car. I won't last as long as she does, so, it's eventually going to be hers anyways. But before I die, I'm pouring sugar in the gas tank and leaving.
You're evil.
Yep. So that's all right. So,
Yeah.
anyways, but no, that was, I said, you don't think anything about the angles. How many times have you been in a truck or a car and you go down and you feel vibration and it's either drive shaft, which you're going to talk a little bit about length on that, but even balancing it. So a lot of the tops, when I first, I had to get my drive shaft made. So I guess this kind of goes into what you're going to talk about. We're underneath the car. We're actually checking the pinion angle. And I look at the yoke. Now, keep in mind, I'm a woodworker by trade, and I'm just 3 years ago was just getting back into any kind of mechanics. And so I look at the drive shaft, and I looked, and I said to Jim, Jim, does that look right? Because I don't know what the total length of the yoke is, but I had about 3 inches hanging out. It was only in the transmission about an inch to inch and a half total. And and that was because the guy who did my restoration, when I changed transmissions, he had the drive shaft fitted. Well, I actually had to have it lengthened or new yoke. Well, I had to get a new yoke and a bunch of other stuff, so I had to have that fixed, and so now it's right where it should. But from the things I believe I read, spline depth. Yeah, absolutely, John. There you go. I don't remember how long my yoke is. I'm blanking at the minute, but I want to say I have about an inch of yoke showing when the car is sitting on the ground. If that makes sense.
Right.
Obviously, you don't want it all the way, and you don't want too much because obviously, if there's not enough in the transmission and you hit a big enough bump or something, you don't want to be pulling that out. Am I right on that, or is that just basically also creates a more vibration?
Well, sticking out, yes, sticking out, you have more sticking out than you have in. There's multiple things that come into play there. When you have it, so we're taking a hole here, and so you have this much out, well, there's a lot more capability for that drive shaft to start flopping around and, moving, whereas if you've got it farther in, pervert, when you have it farther in, there's less chance for it to flop. It's staying held in place and in put. So 3/4 of an inch, somewhere between 3/4 of an inch and 1 inch of the yoke sticking out. So what you want to do is you want to stick the yoke, and you want to have the yoke off of the drive shaft. You want to stick the yoke in. See, pervert.
No, Mark, I'm reading what Mark's writing. I know what he's thinking.
Yeah. That's
right. The yoke is anywhere to 4 to 4.5 inches long. So you're gonna have 3/4. You should have 3/4 to an inch and a half sticking out, depending on that total length.
Between 3/4 of an inch to an inch.
Yep.
And so what you want to do is you want to slide your yoke all the way in till it stops and it doesn't move anymore.
I'm sorry,
pervert. So you got it in all the way, and you're gonna stick your tape measure up, on the seal of the transmission, and you're gonna slide that yoke back about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and then where the bearing cups are on your yoke, you're gonna measure from the center of that all the way back to the center of the yoke in the transmission, of the bearing cup. So that way, you get a correct length. Oh, gee, you guys are terrible.
Just trying to explain stuff, and guys got to take it to the next level here.
Yeah, I know that happens.
It's all good.
It's all good. We're friends here.
Okay.
So, anyways, you want between 3/4 of an inch to an inch of yoke in play, to where it can move in. Obviously, there's a chance for it might move out a little bit more, but typically it usually doesn't come out any farther than that. And you also, when you're measuring, when you're setting your pinion angles or you're measuring your drive shaft, you know, you want to have the car on the ground or at least have, you know, jack stands underneath the suspension. So the car is sitting like it will be sitting on the ground. So when you take these measurements and you take these angles, you know what you're getting, where you're at. And it's not well, it should be correct, you know, and I've got the rear end jacked up, but I don't have the front end jacked up. Yeah, you might have less weight on the back of the car, you know, setting your pinion angle, so your pinion may not be sitting right where it needs to be. Same with the you know, with the drive shaft. You're wanting to have weight on it, so that way that drive shaft, wherever its field of travel is, that's where it's going to be when you're riding down the road.
Right.
So.
Okay.
John.
Hey, I did really good not even laughing when I read it. And I'm about ready to swipe them away there. All right. Number 2, we got too much. How many? Got 12, 13 guys watching. We're going to get this fun in. All right, so air freshener number 2. This goes to the first one. Everybody please listen up, and this is an easy one. Let's get this rolling. Even Alan, I'll even pay double shippage to Canada. First one to type this in and come up on my computer or on my phone screen. 1955, Chevy 235 had how much stock horsepower? Chevy 235 had how much stock horsepower? Let's see if
that.
Are you Googling it?
Me?
I actually knew that one. Nope, John, you're not right. Nope. Haven't seen it yet. Not Alan, not David. And keep in mind, my answers come right off of Chevy search engine, you know, everything else.
So.
But you can't answer, so don't do that.
Not. So you don't want the horsepower with using the higher lift 261 camshaft.
No, in the original 1953 to 1954, 455, blah blah blah, 235 engine had how much stock horsepower with mechanical lifters? So all this question says.
Okay. Well,
Michael Hummel, 150.
150.
Yep.
Yep.
Michael Hummel.
Now, bonus here, if you know what the truck 261 cubic inch, what its horsepower was.
The truck 261?
Yeah, the truck 261.
Now, the 261s did not add the full filter until 1958. So here's what's funny. Okay. So I'm going to do this. As I was just on the Wikipedia site, said 150 horsepower for the 235. Now, this technical article says the forgotten 261 in JimCarterTruckParts.com said the 261 looks almost identical to the 235. It replaces the smaller engine in stock and increases the horsepower from 140 to 148. So now Mark had 148 there for the 261. So he's a Google guy. So the question is, back if that's 260, what'd they say? If that's 148 horsepower, and they say now the 235 was 140, but I was looking at the Corvette site that had the 235. So is there a difference from the 235 Corvette, obviously, to the truck motor?
I think there probably was.
There's about 3 stickers and an extra barrel. I don't know.
Quite interesting.
Well, okay. I'm going to put truck. All right, hold on. How much horsepower can be made from a Chevy 230? Not about how much. Yeah, see, and it comes right back to the same Chevrolet Straight 6, 150 horsepower.
Check the link that I just sent you.
All right. Stove bolt. I think that was one I was looking at. 235, 135 horsepower.
And actually, in 1955, according to the Stowbolt engine page that I found, the 235 could vary anywhere from 200 or 123 horse to 155 horse. The truck was rated for 123, and the truck 261 was rated for 140.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's
Quite
about six.
interesting.
Right, so there was about 6 answers right there.
Yeah.
They were all right. Well, I'm sticking with 150 because that's what I read. Mike Hummel gets a.
Yep, he gets it.
You know, I can only Google so fast. You know.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to remind people now and later into the day I'll be announcing more come Thursday and Friday, but on Friday we're having a very special live video. And it's probably going to be one of the better live videos that's ever been on the mob, if not the best, when we're done with it. We're going to have fun, and it's going to be a big surprise, and I want everybody to tune in or try to tune in. And I get it. Some people work during the day. I already got that excuse.
Lots of slow one. Yep. David, you can get a ton of HP with a lots of slow one.
Okay, thanks, David. So anyways, back to regular schedule. So on Friday, it's roughly going to be around noon 30, 1 o'clock, somewhere in midday. I'll know more, and I'll be as soon as I'm getting close, I'll start giving people reminders on the page. Obviously, we know my regular account doesn't get a lot of dings on the notifications, so I will be using this account to go live, and it's going to be awesome. So I keep in mind, everybody, Terry, you're going to have to tune in. Terry always tunes into videos, though. Terry's got a question. He says, what do you mean when they say to make sure that to clock the U-joints?
When you get done here, then I'll kind of explain that a little bit.
So, yeah, and Terry's got another follow-up question on that, too, about building the drive shaft. So basically on Friday, I'm going to tell people about 10 times, and every day up till Friday, I'm going to tell people we're going to go live on Friday, and it's going to be awesome. Agenda reveal could be Joey, but it's going to be a great live video, something that I think a lot of people will appreciate, and it's going to basically come into a whole weekend of fun. So, good live video, noonish on Friday. I'll have more details later in the week.
Awesome. So, Terry, to respond to your what do they mean when they say be sure to clock the U-joints, they are talking the clocking so the U-joints are clocked on the drive shaft to each other. So you don't have, instead of having one of them clocked this way and one, you want them so that the U-joint cups are clocked. Whoops, I didn't mean to ha-ha that one. What they're saying is you want the U-joints cups clocked to each other so they're in sync, in line with each other, rather than being out of line, out of sync with each other. So you want one U-joint cup and one U-joint cup, and usually, if I remember right, you want the yoke on the drive shaft to be at the same front to rear. So I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. You want the U-joint cups so they're in line with each other. Yeah, as John Liddick said, also referred to as indexing.
Just so John knows what indexing is, so we're going to have a cup like this and a cup like this, and John likes to come in like this a lot. It's kind of like a Y. That's how John indexes.
Oh, boy. Well, we'll hope that doesn't get monetized on the YouTube channel.
Right.
Or
Okay.
demonetized.
No, I will be good.
Bigger hands needed. No. Well, I think for this week, that kind of does it for this week. One thing that I remember I had, let's see here, Cody Scott. So he was kind of talking to me, try and have a safety tip each week. And this week's safety tip is brought to you by Cody Scott. He's going to try and keep giving me weekly safety tips.
Awesome.
How's that?
Awesome.
One weekly safety tip for this week is make sure to check your lines, whether it be fuel or brake, then check your battery cables, that kind of stuff. This was while Cody was building his vehicle. There was I think it was a fuel line is what he told me, that the muffler had been riding on. And at some point it had pinched off the line. If I could get this pulled back up.
Yeah, I saw that when he posted that picture, because it was only about half. It was down about half size, if not less.
Yeah, the muffler was hitting on it and pinching it off. Well, the thing of it was, after so long, that would rub through there. And if that's a fuel line, that's going to cause a fire. If that's a brake line, it's going to cause you to lose your brakes. So, and the other thing is, when you're building these cars, try and build them so that things are not rubbing. So, like, i.e. the muffler rubbing on the brake line or rubbing on a fuel line, always check, make sure you got enough room for things, to where things aren't rubbing on each other and causing problems. And the other thing is, each year we get these cars out and we mothball them in the fall and we get them out in the spring and we'll go drive them. Well, a lot of times we don't go and check everything and, make sure you check your hot rod over and look it out, make sure there isn't anything going wrong with it or something, damaged line or whatnot. So that's our safety tip, is check the car over when you get it out this spring.
That kind of goes along with my grandpa Earl. Always gave good advice. One of the things when it came to safety of working on cars, my grandpa Earl basically always said, never piss off your wife when she's holding the jack handle and you're under the car. That's all he ever said.
Very true.
Right. Very good. All right. Well, we got a couple of Mike Amo, Steve Frank. I'm going to get some info. I know Mike's stuff and Steve's. Get their addresses. Get them send out some stinky shit, as I like to say, some mob stuff. And we'll work on something for next week.
Well, for this week, I want to thank everybody for joining and watching. I want to thank Craig for being my co-host tonight.
Just here to look good.
Oh, just here to look good.
So far, I failed.
No. Thank you, everybody, for watching and joining, and we'll catch you back next week. Have a good one.
Awesome. Have a good day, bud.
You too.